Hello, my name's Joey and welcome to my tour of props and artifacts. Now today what I'm talking about are the last 17 Star Wars figures. Basically, as I'm sure a lot of you already know, and I only really found this out about maybe 2 years ago when I was getting back into collecting and restoring my original Star Wars collection. From 1978 to 1985 you could buy the whole range of Star Wars figures if you were lucky. You know, if you didn't need to swap them and try and travel to different stores to get the one you specifically wanted. But you could buy the whole range. But the last 17 were only made for 1 year. So that's why they fetch quite high prices on eBay, because they're very rare and they're only made for 1 year, where of course all the other figures were made for an entire run. So I'm going to talk to you about the last 17 figures today, and how you don't really have to get them pristine to complete your collection. I'm a completionist, I want to complete the collection. In fact, it is only really some of the last 17 I don't have to complete the collection. And you don't always need to get pristine examples, because you can find some fairly cheaper examples that have been lovingly played with and destroyed in adolescent years. So I'm going to start off with the most expensive one. R2, no, R2, you're going. I'm not saying I paid top dollar for you. I'm going to start off with the most unloved figure, which I absolutely love, the Imperial Dignitary. Now, I love this figure. As a child, I would have thought he was amazing, because if you're building a scene with the Empire and your Luke Skywalker is infiltrating Imperial territory, having an Imperial Dignitary hanging around, to me, is about as good as having the Emperor or Darth Vader. So having an Imperial Dignitary there means that Luke has really infiltrated quite far into Imperial territory, and I just think he would have been cool. And I got him for about, I think he was £40, because he's got quite a few burn marks on him. At some point in his life, a child has decided to burn him and successfully burnt his hand off, but it doesn't really detract, and my eyesight's not brilliant nowadays, so he can kind of get away from being burnt. He's still quite a cool figure. Now here comes Luke Skywalker infiltrating that Imperial base, disguised as a stormtrooper. What a brilliant idea, Luke. This figure was picked up for £45. It was listed as being original, apart from the blaster. Now when I got it, the blaster was black, as should have come with the figure, but the blaster floats. Now I know that repros are made to float as well, just like the originals did as well, which I think is personally cheating. But what I found out was that the helmet was a repro and not the blaster. So I don't know if the description got a bit mixed up. So I'm hoping the blaster is genuine. I'm not too fussed if it's not, but and I'm not too fussed about the fact that the helmet is a repro, because it's not the best looking of Stormtrooper sculpts. And I'd much sooner just buy another Stormtrooper and hollow it out and stick this on Luke's head. But it's very, very good to have the Luke Skywalker in Stormtrooper disguise, which I do remember as a child seeing in a shop for £1.59. And at that stage, I had not really bothered so much about buying Star Wars figures. So I thought he was cool, but I didn't buy him. But a very, very expensive figure here, a Man-O-Man with his original staff. Luckily enough, I did buy in 1985, when I was still involved in Star Wars, and he was £1.59, and I bought him brand new from a toy shop, and he's still in absolute pristine condition. I think I treated him very well. His limbs are still very stiff and all that business. His paint is still perfect, and I loved this figure. I just thought he was brilliant for I could say team building, but he was brilliant for creating worlds and scenes. There is actually an ant running all over the Imperial Dignitary, so I don't know whether or not that's the fact that it's not a fond of the Imperial Dignitary, or it's telling me the ant has a favourite. He's now making his way onto Luke. Anyway, so that's a Man-O-Man. He can fetch very high prices, but I got him for £1.59. This man, Anakin Skywalker's Force Ghost, was in an auction way before eBay, but in an auction house when we were kids. My nan and dad were bidding on a collection of Star Wars figures. I don't know how, but I don't remember us getting many doubles. So that was a very, very good auction, because we ended up with figures that we didn't have. So yes, that's Anakin Skywalker. He's one of the last 17. Now, I only recently found out again why he has these massive baby blue eyes is because, of course, he's a false ghost. So they're emulating that ghostly feeling about him, even though he just looks like a perfect figure with baby blue eyes. But there you go. That's Anakin Skywalker. Probably the most expensive figure I've ever paid for. That is the Death Star gunner. Once again, I love that figure. Now, a lot of people give the last 17 a bit of a bad rap. They think they're boring. You know, that's up to you. I don't mind. But I love them. I find them just as exciting as I would have done if I was a child. So getting these for the first time is great. And I absolutely love the Imperial Gunner. Now, he was fairly cheap as well. Well, I say fairly cheap. He was £60, but let's be honest, he can be fairly expensive as well. And one of the reasons he was fairly cheap is because, as you can see, he's lost some of his fingers. Now, I don't mind. That's probably one part and parcel of working near the Death Star guns. Put your hand too close to the super laser and you're going to lose your fingers. So I think that's probably what happened to this poor fellow, which is why he was £60 and not ridiculously £200 or up. So, of course, I jumped at the chance. And under a jeweller's glass, you can see he has many minute scratches of evidence of being played with. I think at one stage he's even been painted khaki because there's very, very slight remnants of khaki paint on him. So I was very pleased to get him. Once again, this figure I absolutely love. Luke in his Jedi outfit on Endor. Thank you, Luke. Well done. Now, I do feel very unprofessional when these figures fall over, but I've seen so many professional videos where the figures do exactly the same thing. So that's Luke in his Endor outfit. Now, he was an amalgamation of purchases. The figure itself was £35. The cape was £20. It's those kind of eBay purchases where you kind of press the button and you wince and you, oh, I'm just going to have to buy it. £20 for a piece of cloth. But this piece of cloth was slightly bad condition, so that's why it was relatively cheap. And I wasn't too fussed about getting the original belt. But what I did get, this is the belt that came with the Hoth survival kit. So it's still technically Luke's belt. It still fits the part. I used to have a cable tie around it like I know a lot of collectors do. That always looked quite cool as well. But I wanted to upgrade and get a belt. And so he's still wearing Luke's belt. It's just a little bit far removed from him being a Jedi. Lando Calrissian. General Lando Calrissian. I love this figure. If he'd have had his cape, he would have been a beautiful figure. He's still beautiful, but he's missing his cape, so I'm not fussed. He was £30. What I love about him is a missed childhood opportunity to have him in the Millennium Falcon with Neem Num. That would have been great. That could still happen, but the excitement wouldn't be as long-lasting as it would have been as a child. The excitement would still be there, but not as long-lasting. So yeah, that's General Calrissian. He's fairly good condition. He's just missing his cape. All of these last 17 here, they don't really have their accessories apart from a Manor Man who I had from a child. So I've still got, it's amazing, I've still got his staff, but there you go. The staff alone can go for £100 upwards. So we have one of the most expensive figures here. R2-D2 with his pop-up lightsaber from Return of the Jedi. Now, what's brilliant about him, I bought him in the mid-90s for 50p. So there's going to be a tiny bit of an uproar there that I got him so cheaply. But I can also tell you with 100% confidence that lightsaber has never come out of R2's casing. Because, once again, up until 2 years ago, I didn't know it could come out. And I don't want to pull it out anyway. So that lightsaber is 100% genuinely original because I've never pulled it out. Now, he can fetch anywhere from £200 upwards with collectors. I've sometimes seen an example in that condition go for about £500. But I don't want to part with him because he's just too cool and he completes my collection. Love or hate, I've always loved the Ewoks. Come on, if you want to fight stormtroopers, if you want an army build, you need Ewoks. And I love Ewoks. And I don't care that the last 17 had a lot of Ewoks. And I almost bought Warwick for £80, I think. Well, I didn't have the money at the time, and unfortunately I lost him. So I lost Warwick, but what we have there, we have Lumat, Pablo and Romba. And Lumat doesn't have his bow anymore. The other two do have their weapons. I just was quite lazy not getting them out. These two I did own as children, so I did own them as children. Yes, I reared these two Ewoks and they loved me very much. Now these two I had as a child, these two Ewoks, and they still have their accessories, thank God. But Lumat at the back there, Lumat was £30, and his little bow and arrow quiver set was 20. And that was another kind of purchase where you kind of wince, but the completionist in you has to complete the figure, obviously. His bow being very, very rare. I'm not into reproductions. It's very good if you do like reproductions, of course, but I'm not really into reproductions. I know I've got a reproduction Stormtrooper helmet on my Luke here, but that's a bit of a necessity. But I wouldn't buy a repro bow. I wouldn't buy a repo bro. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't buy a repro bow. I just feel it would taint the figure. But they can be insane prices. Maybe £60 upwards. So I don't think Lumat's going to have his bow very soon, unless I find one somewhere in an old childhood box, and then that's the only way you're going to really know it's genuine. And the very last 17 figure I have, because I don't have the full collection, is a EV9D9, and she is in a very, very sore state. In fact, I'm going to have a rock here to help her stand up. I don't think this is going to work. No, it's not going to work, is it? So anyway, EV9D9, the female robot in Jabba's palace. As you can see, she's in a very, very poor condition. These figures are notorious for having their limbs broken, missing. As you can see here, she is in a very, very bad state. Insanely enough, she was £40. But once again, I thought if I'm ever going to get this figure, I do not want to pay £500. I do not want to pay £400. I don't want to pay £200 for a figure. But for £45, I can restore her. I can either get some Stan Solo legs. Sorry, Stan Solo. It feels a crime to buy a figure just to massacre it, but your legs are brilliant. Thank you, he says. So, of course, I'll probably go down that route. Or I'll just get the re-release Kenner version from the mid-90s and put those arms and legs on him. And make her a bit of a Frankenstein. But I'm afraid I'm going to have to lie you down because you're not going to stand up. There we go. Looking very sorry for herself. Maybe disintegrated by Jabba for insolence, who knows. So anyway, that's the Star Wars last 17. There's not 17 there, but these are my last 17 figures. I'm not so sure. I think Warwick is the last one I really want to get. But that's pretty much it. Yes, I don't really want to get Han Solo. He looks a little bit too beefy for my liking. Han Solo and Carbonite. Obviously getting the Carbonite chamber as well. What he's frozen in, his Carbonite block is insanely expensive, so I'm not going to really bother there. But I think this is the last 17. I think this is where I want to finish with the last 17. Yes, I do want to get Warwick. I want to get the last Ewok. I love the Ewoks. I think everybody needs a band of Ewoks to battle Stormtroopers. Super, super chuffed I own this one, just because he's expensive and he's rare. Very, very cool. 50p, you know. What can you say? Absolutely amazed that a man was my childhood alien in Jabba's palace. Love the Death Star gunner. I think the Imperial dignitary, I almost was going to buy another one. I think he's very, very important for infiltrating Imperial bases. Anakin Skywalker, he's okay. There just wasn't really much you could do with him, really, was there? Not really much, really. You could slap him at the back of the Ewok village, but I think that's about it, really. Not really much else you could do. Love Luke in Endor. He looks fantastic. General Calrissian would have just been beautiful with his cape, but obviously he would have been and demanded a lot more money at that result. So anyway, that's my Star Wars Last 17. That's my take on the Last 17 figures. Look after yourselves, be good to yourselves, and I shall see you soon.